Now, violent protests have recently rocked coloured communities across the country. Many in the communities feel that the current democracy marginalises them. The most recent incident is in Eldred De Klerk. We continue to take the different discussions on the alleged killing of 16-year-old Nathaniel Julius by police. Joining us in conversation is Eldred De Klerk, who is a senior policing and community conflict specialist. Very good morning to you, and thank you for your time. We want to find out if what your thoughts are around coloured communities. Are they really overlooked, especially when it comes to the level of violence in those communities and within the country?
Yes, indeed. I personally have an issue with the narrative of minority politics. Coloureds, or so-called coloureds, or other coloureds, or Indians for that matter, have all traditionally been deemed to be black. The experience is that of black people. My experience is that of a black person in South Africa. And what has happened is that we've had a change in narrative where minorities, and it's essentially a white-led narrative by white Afrikaners who consider themselves to be a minority. Colored folk in areas like Eldred De Klerk that's traditionally been so-called deemed colored suffer the same injustices, the same inequalities, and go through the same plight as any other black person in this country. And we should recognize that as such, and policing should meet those needs and serve rather than seek to enforce the law.
Now, we sort of were reminded again last year about the racial tensions, especially not only in South Africa as a country, but within the Eldred De Klerk area when the Human Rights Commission was there looking at the racial tensions in schools. That was another reminder that these tensions are still there. When it comes to just assessing the history of coloured communities and the racial tensions and the marginalisation that you speak of, what is it that needs to be understood to take the community and the country forward?
Indeed, thank you for that, because you need to take a historical perspective. If somebody feels that they've been not good enough to be white, but they're definitely better than black, it's a narrative that they've grown up believing, and they feel stuck in the middle. And I think, as your journalist and others have reported, and you all have reported correctly, is that people for a long time have felt stuck in the middle. And that stuck in the middle, we've not moved them. And if you look at the quality of lives that people are still living, no significant improvement has been made to the quality of lives of people in areas like Eldred De Klerk and the same gang-torn areas of the Cape Flats in the Western Cape.
Now, with this particular story, just, we've been hearing the comments coming out of it. It's not the first time that we've heard the Eldorado community speak about the manner in which police are treating them, that police have turned into monsters, they cannot be trusted. They are also inciting some of the violence within those communities. As we take a look and listen to the rage of the community, what is your analysis on what transpired yesterday, of course triggered by what happened on Wednesday night when a 16-year-old was shot allegedly by police?
Unfortunately, our police are still policing the underclass, and the areas like Eldred De Klerk is considered underclass. There are class and racial differences in our country, and police are still policing the underclass. And instead of police going there and saying, let's investigate this allegation, they went there and said, let's go and deal with the protests, the rightful protests of people. Yes, there was violence, and we have to be clear in this country. Was there a threat to life? And does it become routine that police start using rubber bullets and stun grenades to suppress people's expression of their anger and their dissent? So police in itself, in their orientation, must go there and say, let's investigate the allegations, let's start a dialogue and a conversation, rather than deem people of the so-called underclass as our enemy and let's suppress their right to peaceful protest. Yes, we can argue that the protest wasn't peaceful. The first response should not or ever be, unless there's a direct threat to life, with the shooting of stun grenades and rubber bullets.
Now, Residents have over the years said, and we've also seen it, residents have said that Eldorado Park is under siege from drugs, crime, corrupt cops, gangs and guns. As we try and get a better understanding, perhaps a more thorough assessment of what triggered yesterday's protests to the intensity that we saw, what is at the heart of the actual problem? Yes, a 16-year-old disabled teenager was shot dead, but as we try and go deeper into the problem, assessing it in its full nature, what is it that needs to be understood?
It's the collapse of critical social institutions, the families that are disrupted by other people of the family being on drugs, being in jail, unemployed, going to bed hungry. There's no decent shelter. People are still living 8 to 10 to a room. And the whole fabric that actually needs to tie a community so that it flourishes, it can live freely, has entirely collapsed over many decades. And there's been underinvestment. In fact, in some areas, there's been disinvestment. People have actually left the area the minute they are able to do so. And we now need to start looking at the social compact that the president talks about, and all other institutions of state and public services need to come aboard. When the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us that we have no social welfare net and we have no free access to health or public services that people so dire require. And this is where government needs to transform talk into action, and it shouldn't be the police who bear the burden of actually dealing with the dissent and the aid and the marginalization and the anger and frustration of people. It should be all of government and all those essential services. And they should do that immediately. It shouldn't be send the police in, tell people that the condition for us talking is that you stop being angry. You've got to be present in the face of anger and still have that conversation.
And very lastly, before we let you go, as the community tries to move forward and have some sort of calm restored and some sort of normality within that community, the Eldorado police station is still the elephant in the room. I mean, we heard it being mentioned many times, and yesterday wasn't the first time with this incident that the community has expressed their dissatisfaction with the Eldorado police station specifically. In fact, yesterday they went as far as naming the alleged culprit, the alleged killer of that 16-year-old teen. Going forward, what is the solution there? How do those relations become repaired and also some sort of restoration to the image of that police station?
Well, let's define policing in South Africa as strangers policing strangers. And the response there should not be to say to people, prove this. The response is take them at their word. This is a lived experience of people, and you move to build public confidence in the institution like the police. And it should not be met necessarily by the Minister of Police. We should see the National Commissioner, the Provincial Commissioner, and the Local Station Commissioner enter into a dialogue with the people of Eldorado Park, move to build their public confidence and restore the image and faith we have of the police, and remove those officers. Let them work somewhere else, put them on desk duty, and ensure that the officers who actually take to the street continue to act professional, treat the people as the public that they serve, and uphold the very principles of professional policing. Look to de-escalate situations rather than to say to people, prove your allegation. That's not necessary. Proof will come in time as trust is built and people can say, I personally did the following, or I experienced that. There's been no storytelling of people, and it's a process of healing that needs to happen in Eldorado Park as it needs to happen across the country. So let's ask of our leadership to exercise public leadership and go to Eldorado Park and start to listen to what people have to say and take them at their word.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time and that analysis. Eldred De Klerk, Senior Policing and Community Conflict Specialist, talking to us some of the solutions that need to come into play as we assess the developments coming out of Eldorado Park.